Well, November 9th, it's an important date. It wasn't that long ago, right after the election. We're thinking about it. Coronavirus cases slightly up on the rise. Public officials beginning to give some warnings. One of those was Austin Mayor Steve Adler. This is what he had to say on that day. Let's take a listen.
The thrust of the most important messages trying to get out to the community right now is that our numbers are increasing, and everybody has to be aware of that. And we need to, stay home if you can. Do everything you can to try to keep the numbers down. This is not the time to relax.
Not the time to relax, Ryan, except you might notice the kind of staccato there in the background. Turns out he was filming that in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, which he flew there on a private plane the day after hosting a wedding reception for his daughter at a boutique hotel in Austin with 20 guests. At the time, Austin was under a stage 3 advisory recommending no more than 10 people gather. There's been a lot of bad ones. This is probably the worst one yet. The guy flies on a private jet to Cabo, hang out with the fam, hosting a wedding reception. Good Lord. This is just total hypocrisy. It's crazy.
Well, you could see it in his face when he said stay home. When he said stay home, his face kind of lights up in a way. He's like, oh boy. and then you see that kind of Spanish architecture.
Yeah, like in the background
behind him. Now, there's a lot of Spanish influence in Austin and throughout Texas. So you're like, oh, that looks like a pretty casual shirt that the guy's wearing there too. Where is he? All of this could have been avoided if policymakers and leaders would have taken a more kind of rational approach to the situation from the beginning, because then you wouldn't get the hypocrisy charges.
Yeah.
If you remember in the beginning, and not that a lot of this sentiment has led up, you had this viral guy going around in a Grim Reaper costume on the beach, harassing people. It's like, what are you doing? I'm sitting outdoors with my family, like distance from everyone else on the beach. Like, get away from me, you creep.
Yep.
So in Washington D.C. they closed parks.
Yeah.
You couldn't take a walk.
Couldn't even read on a bench. Yeah.
They would send. I was trying to teach one of my twins to ride her bike early on, and on like near a baseball field. Nobody else within hundreds of yards, and a cop comes up and it's like, you have to get out of here. And my daughter started crying. She's like, I hate coronavirus.
Oh, jeez.
Like, yes, it is coronavirus. It's also this weird policy that says you can't be outdoors in a park. Now, they walked some of that back. The parks are open in a more significant way, and that hasn't led to any sort of outbreak. But I was warning at the time, and a lot of people were, that if you give people directions that are absurd and impossible to follow, you're going to undermine your credibility as public health officials, and then you're also going to open yourselves up to these kinds of hypocrisy scandals when you yourself can't follow them.
And that's exactly what has happened, because guess what? Public officials are like all of us, and they're fed up with this nonsense, which is exactly what happened out in San Francisco. Same thing. At this point, we need to count the number of officials who are not hypocrites. That would probably be a shorter list. San Francisco Mayor London Breed had her own party at the French Laundry the night after Gavin Newsom, the same fancy little restaurant and all of that. And what is she doing? She's out there advocating for more lockdown, shutdown. Look, same thing in Los Angeles, right? The board, the deciding vote on the city council in order to shut outdoor dining, votes to shut down outdoor dining, and then goes to eat outside in Santa Monica hours after the vote, same day. And she just murdered that business and so many others. And it's like I said here, look, there's no evidence whatsoever around outdoor dining and its spread. If there is any spread whatsoever, it's indoor dining. And then even then, they're like people who go out to eat, indoors are like twice more likely to contract it. Yeah, well, they're probably more like risk takers anywhere. So can you really say that this is a vector for transmission? Look, and again, this is just when it comes down to public health, then you actually have to have the trust of the public. And I think that they have lost it completely. And I don't want to make light of restrictions or anything. Look, it's a terrible situation right now. Like, let's throw this stats up there on the screen. We've now got 14 million COVID-19 cases. You and I were just looking at the death number. I think yesterday we had about 2,885 deaths that were reported yesterday. This is from the New York Times. And the number of cases is also really high up there. It's 199,988, nearing very close to 200,000 a day. Deaths are also a lagging indicator, so very likely that number is going to go up. Now, should say, proportionally relative to the amount of cases that were there 2 weeks ago. And the death number, it's not even close to the same as what it was in April, but every life lost is, still a human life, and it's a cherished one. And I think that is something where it's so terrible that we're in this situation. And you have these total hypocrites who are in charge, and at this point, nobody is going to listen to them. Absolutely no one. Right. And I don't know what else to say. I hope the vaccine can't come soon enough, because this is the only way we're going to get out of this mess.
Right, and to have the trust, those things are linked. The death count and the lack of trust in public health officials, and to win the trust of the public, you have to actually trust the public. Treat them with respect and dignity. Tell them, look, this is a fatal, potentially fatal, contagious pathogen that is circulating among the public. Here's what you can do to protect yourself. You can wear a mask, socially distance, avoid crowds. But there's nothing that you're going to do that is going to entirely eliminate the risk until we get to a vaccine. So what you need to do is you need to stay as safe as you possibly can until then. You need to give people the financial support to make it from here to there. But when you start putting up these ridiculous laws, like you can't take a walk in a park. There were localities that were trying to restrict dog walking and things like that. And when you tell people that, then they start to disregard the other things that you're saying, that like keep social distance and don't wear a mask. Then you see it start to spread, and you see the death count continue to rise. So it's important to treat people with respect if you want to be respected.
I completely agree with you, and so much of this nonsense. I mean, in the beginning, a lot can be forgiven. We don't know a lot, but at this point, quite a bit, and then you're still shutting things down and going out and being, just flagrantly violating your own guidance. It's just so disgusting, and so many people have lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods, and so much more. We're going to have more Rising for everybody right after this.